Today I am going to discuss a famous ballad by John Keats. The name of the ballad is La Belle Dame Sans Merci. The title is somewhat strange, and actually it is a French phrase which, if translated into English, will mean the beautiful lady without mercy. The poem was first written in the month of April 1819 in a letter to George and Georgiana Keats, but it was published in a journal named Indicator in 1820. And the title is a French phrase. Actually, the title is taken from a French poem of the same name by Alan Chartier, a 15th century French poet. And in that poem, we have a similar theme of love between a fairy lady and a knight. And the poet was so much impressed by the title that he was compelled to compose a poem, and the result was La Belle Dame Sans Merci. Now, if you look at the subtitle of the poem, a ballad, then what is a ballad? A ballad is a literary form. It is a song or a poem that tells a story, and its origin goes back to the days of Homer, but in Europe it became popular only in the 15th century, and in the medieval period many writers began writing ballads. And ballads are mainly two types: the traditional ballad and the literary ballads. The traditional ballads are normally anonymous and they do not have written form, and literary ballads are signed by the poets, and it is found in written form. And La Belle Dame Sans Merci is a literary ballad of the type that was composed by the great romantic poet Coleridge. The name of the ballad is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and Mansfield's The Saltwater Ballads. So this is a literary ballad. Now, what is the poem about? What is the theme of the poem, La Belle Dame Sans Merci? Actually, it is about disillusionment in love and the suffering it produces. It is about the wasting power of love. The poem introduces the archetype of femme fatale, or irresistibly beautiful woman bringing danger and disaster to a man. Here, the knight is the man and the beautiful lady is the femme fatale. And moreover, while writing this poem, the poet may have in his mind his affair with Fanny Brawne and the afflictions of the poet at the thraldom of that beautiful lady. And moreover, if we look at the time of the composition of the poem, actually it was the spring of 1819, the year of great productivity in Keats. And here we have the same conflict between the ideal and the real that we find in the great odes. The world or the bliss, joy experienced by the knight actually symbolizes the world of art, the world of imagination. And the poet's rejection from that world is also indicates the theme of the conflict between the world of flux and the world of fixity, the world of permanence and our world that is full of sufferings and pain. Now I will come to the text. Reader, the poem has two parts. The first part deals with the meeting of the stranger with the knight, and the second part, the answer of the knight to the stranger's question. Now, there is the background to the story. The knight met a beautiful lady in a field, and he was highly captivated by her charms, and she was a fairest child. The lady takes her to her cave, to her place, makes love, and then after a temporary bliss, the knight is expelled from her elfin god. The knight is rejected. Now, lovelorn, the knight moves around, crestfallen and without moorings. And in this condition, the stranger meets him by the hillside. And the stranger is amazed at the death-pale condition of the knight. And his puzzled query begins thus: "Oh, what can ail the knight at arms, alone and palely loitering?" So the stranger asks, "O knight at arms, what is the cause of your trouble? What is the cause of your suffering? You are lonely here and moving aimlessly. The sage has withered from the lake and no birds sing." It is the hillside, and there is a lake by the side of the hill, and in that lake the green grass have lost their color and no birds sing. It is the time of winter. The birds have retired, they no longer sing. Now the third and fourth line of this stanza does not describe the cause of the knight's suffering. Rather, it creates a setting that befits the condition of the lover, the desolation of the lover. The condition of the lover and the condition prevailing outside corresponds to each other. Then next stanza: "Oh, what can ail thee, knight at arms? O knight at arms, what is the cause of your trouble? So haggard and begun. So you look so tired and unhappy from worry and lack of sleep." So haggard means unhappy and tired, especially from lack of sleep and suffering. And begun, so you are besieged with woes, you are full of woes, you are unhappy. The squirrel's granary is full and the harvest is done. The squirrel's granary, it is the time of autumn. Autumn is the season of fruitfulness, of harvest. It is the harvesting time of the autumn. The squirrel has its home full of grains and the harvest is done. So in nature there is fruition, in nature there is fulfillment, but in the night there is lack of the fruition, there is pain and suffering, and that everything that does not say and give any promise, but only talks about death. "I see a lily on thy brow, with anguish moist and fever dew." So the face of the night reveals many things. As you know, the face is the index of the mind, and the stranger tries to read the mind of the knight by looking at the face. So he can see a lily on the brow. Lily is a white flower, and the flower is associated with death, with colorlessness, with anguish moist. So anguish means physical and mental suffering. So the lily is there, but it looks colorless, as you are suffering from anguish. And on thy cheeks a fading rose, and on your cheeks there is a rose, but the rose has lost its color. The rose has lost its luster, fast withered too. Now the lily and the rose, the two flowers, mean the love that the poet enjoyed. At the same time, its withered condition reflect the present lovelorn condition of the night. When he enjoyed the love, there was lily, it was fresh. There was rose, it was fresh. But now they are present, but they are only in a withered, death-pale condition. So this is about the first part of the poet. In the next class, we will deal with the second part. Thank you all.